So if I use AI inside our operation, I should be able to drive more profit. But that profit, I want to invest so I can grow the business. I don't want to be the same $1 billion in revenue every single year for the next 10 years. I want to see us grow 10, 20, 30%, because that's what provides value creation for our investors and for our employees.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome back to AI and the Future of Work. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleRain, the AI platform for IT and HR employee service. Our community is growing thanks to you, our loyal listeners. If you aren't yet, click subscribe in the show notes to the link to our newsletter. We publish it weekly. It's full of additional tips and some content that doesn't always make it into the weekly episode, and maybe even some additional AI fun facts. We are all in this together. If you enjoyed today's episode or any other, do yourself and a friend a favor. Share it with just one person that you know, that you trust. They'll know you care about using AI to make humans better. And you know what? If someone you know shared this with you, pay it forward. Tell them thanks, and they'll appreciate you listening as well. If you leave a comment, I just may share it in an upcoming episode, like this one from Todd in Duluth, Minnesota, who's the CIO of a manufacturing company. Todd's favorite episode is number 306 with Dan Helfrich, Deloitte Consulting CEO, about leading a team of 80,000 people and the lessons he learned from teaching customers around the world about AI. It's a great conversation. We learn from AI thought leaders weekly on the show. Of course, the added bonus, you get one AI fun fact. Here it is for today. Ma Si writes in China Daily Online that Chinese enterprise software will lead global AI adoption. Ma writes that China's new generation of enterprise software has become highly competitive in the global market and is poised to lead worldwide digital and intelligent transformation in the era of AI, much like China's mobile internet platforms and new vehicles have in the past. 4 key factors that will accelerate China's leadership in global AI adoption include China's advanced digital business environment, breakthroughs in underlying AI tech like LLMs, the enthusiastic embrace of AI within Chinese enterprises, and active promotion and support from supportive government policies. We will link to that full interesting article in today's show notes. My commentary: the geopolitics of AI can only be understood by listening to all perspectives, especially from adversaries. AI is a global technology. To the Western ear, it seems like propaganda, hearing that Chinese software will lead global AI adoption. If we move past American exceptionalism and trade barriers and instead think of how markets would organically adopt new technology without policy intervention, the technology that delivers the most value and the best user experience will always win. The case for China winning, if markets allow for fair access, is strong. Consider objectively that China has a nearly insurmountable lead in energy generation and storage technology, abundant low-cost skilled labor, superior supply chain management, modern infrastructure, and fuel-efficient transportation. It's also, by the way, home of half of the world's AI researchers and engineers. It's okay to question the politics of AI long enough to remember what history teaches us: innovation knows no boundaries. Of course, you can learn more about that in the newsletter. We cover that topic quite frequently. Now shifting to this week's conversation. Dennis Kozak is the CEO of Ivanti, the enterprise IT and security company with over $1 billion in annual revenue and more than 40,000 customers. Ivanti was formed in 2017 from the merger of Landesk, Heat, and Sharewell. Love opening that time capsule. The company subsequently acquired Mobile Iron in mobile device management, plus Pulse Secure and Risk Sense in network security. Prior to his current role, Dennis was the COO of Ivanti before serving in leadership roles at Avaya. Prior to Avaya, Dennis spent nearly 23 years at CA Software, which is now Broadcom, leading partnership sales and services teams. Dennis received his BS in accounting from St. Joseph's University in Long Island. Go Golden Eagles. Of course, that's the perennial ankle biter in the NCAA tourney. What amazing runs St. Joseph's had in the past. And Gosh, without further ado, Dennis, really is my pleasure to welcome you to AI and the Future of Work. Let's get started by having you share a bit more about that illustrious background and how you get into the space.
All right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. This will be a fun conversation. First of all, I love the thoughts you shared about AI and the challengers, specifically China. I agree with some of your points. I would like to disagree and say that the U.S. will win out, but hey, listen, time will tell. The one thing I could tell you is that we all have to do our part if we want to win this race. And while we like to be technologically superior, we like to think of ourselves, don't get too comfortable. We have to work hard and push the envelope every single day. I think we'll get into some of that today. But going back to my background, how did I get here? Well, you painted the history, the timeline. It was actually pretty interesting because I went to school for accounting, and I thought I was going to get a public accounting job. And right at the end of my college career, I said, I'm not so sure accounting is exactly right for me. And I started looking at other things. I didn't think I wanted to be locked in a closet as an auditor for a couple of years while I passed my CPA exam. And I ended up with what was called a sales accounting job at Computer Associates. And the reason why I took the job was it was headquartered on Long Island. I had two job offers. One was for a cement company that was owned by British Petroleum, and the other was a technology company. And even though the technology company paid less, the thought was, well, they're in a more innovative space than cement and manufacturing. So let's go try that out. I thought it was the wrong choice. I started interviewing for another job less than 30 days, saying this company's crazy. There's no way I belong here. But in the meantime, I met some great people. And so I got involved with the teams and got to know people, made some good friends, enjoyed the social aspect of the job. Everybody was headquartered there, similar age, all motivated to do the right thing. The founder of CA was an amazing individual that really, painted a vision on the art of possible with software and things that we're going to do. Before we recorded, we talked a little bit about Unicenter. And Unicenter was, certainly at the forefront of bridging a lot of the problems we're still trying to solve. And some of the views that Charles Wang had inspired us to keep going. So CA was not a straight path forward. I started in accounting, went into operations. CA went through its own difficulties with some issues. But in that, over the course of the years I was there, we had 5 different CEOs. And each one of those was almost like a different career because the new CEO would come in, certainly had the founder, then we had the founder's protege, and then we went into a couple of outside hires, and each of them brought a different perspective, a little bit different mission and charter. And so the job kept changing, my role kept changing, my responsibility kept expanding. And when it all concluded upon the acquisition by Broadcom, I found myself at the head of global sales for the company. And to go from a staff sales accountant, all the way to the global head of sales in that a long period of time, but 22 years, was quite a transformative journey. I had done things in accounting, operations, sales operations, and then I ran our transformation project, which was to move CA from on-premise software to SaaS. We acquired a few SaaS properties and really wanted to get into that space. So figure in the mid 20-teens, it was time to really put the gas on moving out of mainframe or diversifying from mainframe and into truly where these non-mainframe workloads were going, which was in the cloud. And I learned a ton from that experience. Came back in to do ops and came back in to run global sales until we got acquired. But that put CA back on the map. And one thing that you say about CA talent is we all learned a lot. Everybody had the opportunity to do pretty much any role you wanted. And you were rewarded for not your education and not your past experience, but for your effort that you put in at that time in that role. And that opened up doors. And that philosophy, was, incredibly grateful for it because clearly I did okay with it. And, it was a lot of fun. Great people, great opportunity for so many years. But eventually, like all good things, they do have to come to an end, and we got acquired. Well, it was not the end for CA, it was the end for some of us. Certainly the management team went on to do other things because Hawk had his own management team. They were incredibly great to work with through the process. And it was time to say, okay, now what's next? What's the next chapter of this career? I started looking around. I thought I wanted to go to private equity and stay in enterprise software. But I didn't want to work for a direct competitor of CA's. I wanted to try something a little bit different. And I landed at Avaya, a unified communications and contact center company that has its heritage all the way back to AT&T. And it was a company that was spun out from AT&T to Lucent out to its own. And it itself was going through its own transformation. It wanted to become a cloud company. UCAS, Unified Communication as a Service, and Contact Center as a Service. Two on-premise businesses that had owned significant market share for so long. And a CFO from my company joined as the CFO of Avaya. He said, "Hey, look, let's do this together. Let's go help this company make its transformation." He knew the CEO, somebody he worked with at IBM over 20 years ago, was reunited with him, and we went in, to make a run at doing transforming to a cloud business. Things didn't go exactly as planned. And, as I was contemplating what was next, the Ivanti recruiter came to me, a third party recruiter came to me about the Ivanti opportunity. And I looked at it and thought, wow, this looks a lot like CA in the infrastructure, service management, and security space. Basically the same type of business without a mainframe. Now, the mainframe was a great business to have because it was certainly a cash cow, if you will, and provided a lot of funding for other things. But Ivanti was private equity backed by Clear Lake Capital, TA Associates, and Charles Bank. Three great firms. And as I met the sponsors, as I met the management team, I thought this was a place that really felt right for me. I knew a lot of people here. A lot of CA folks had come this way after the Broadcom acquisition. Some joined Ivanti directly. Some joined Ivanti through acquisitions, the ones that you mentioned in your opening comments. And nonetheless, I knew some of the people. I knew a lot of the customers. I knew some of the partners. It was a really good opportunity. And I came in as chief operating officer right after in 2022, as they had concluded all of the acquisitions and were really getting through integration. And it struggled. It was having a tough time putting it all together. It was great on paper, but it was more difficult to execute. What I brought to the table was my CA experience. Over 20 years of integrating acquisitions. During my time there and all the different roles I had, CA had acquired over 100 companies, 200 companies its entire history as a standalone entity. So we certainly had a lot of good experience to bring to the table about how integration should go. And while I had responsibility primarily for the go-to-market functions, including sales and marketing, services, et cetera, customer success, I also have responsibility for operations because of my background. So it was all about how do we get this all to work the way the business plan was written to our investors and our sponsors. We made significant progress. The person that hired me, Jeff Abbott, my former CEO, had let me know last summer that he was thinking about retiring. And obviously, we had talked about this previously, but I was hoping to be able to get his role. I interviewed with our sponsors. He recommended me to the board. And here I am in the role as of January 1st. And I'll tell you what, we are making significant progress. The go-to-market functions are in a much better shape. Products, strategy, roadmap are in a great place. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, especially as it relates to AI today. So it's been a fun journey. Really enjoyed it all along the way.
Dennis, for you and I, Ivanti is a household name. But shocker, many listeners may not be familiar with the company. Just start, build on that intro and maybe go through a customer success story that makes you most proud that'll help the listeners understand who Ivanti is.
Yeah, I mean, all told, we have a lot of different products that all came through acquisitions. Some of them were known by their acquired names quite well. As you said, Ivanti was formed in 2017 through the merger of Landesk and Heat Software as the two original contributing entities. Each of them had acquired software. But when you think about it, we really have three core pillars of our business, the three anchor tenants, if you will, in that mall strategy. We have our IT service management business, a business that you and I both know very well from our backgrounds. And, IT service management, think internal help desks, or, better than internal help desks for IT, but also for lines of business, whether it's an HR help desk, a finance help desk, et cetera. It's all, there's an incident or there's a problem that needs to be solved. You track it and manage it. You put a case to it. And so you have all kinds of software and logic to help you manage that to make sure that you provide the best customer service, whether your customer's internal or external. So our IT service management or enterprise service management business is a better term for it, is one of our anchor tenants. The other is really around the endpoint management, and endpoints are think of the desktops that we all use. Sorry, most of us don't use desktops, but desktop computers, laptops, the servers that they connect to, and certainly all of our mobile devices, iPads, iPhones, Android, etc. So managing all of those and giving the user a consistent user experience and giving IT the ability to get the same data, provide the same level of service and access, is a really important element of it. And then the third area is really our endpoint security business, which is now better known as exposure management. As the threat landscape continues to evolve. So while there is a lot of great tech out there and a lot of innovation happening, some people use it for nefarious purposes. And, we all know about, some of these great hacks or vulnerabilities that take down systems and so on. And certainly our software helps companies manage that. How do you understand what is your attack surface? It's not just the user, it's not just the device. It could be anything, websites, domains, applications, scripts, APIs. So you have to understand what is your attack surface? How do you minimize it? And better yet, how do you manage it? And then worst case scenario, how do you remediate it when there is a problem? And so Ivanti has a number of very good software capabilities in that particular space to help this evolving concept of managing exposures, exposure management. So it's an exciting space to be in. A lot of things coming together that have been around for a long time, but AI is changing and transforming the way that they're used every single day.
Let's go there. There's a lot of concern in the enterprise software space that the need for the traditional database and a UI sitting on top of that is sold or consumed in the form of SaaS seats, that may be disrupted by kind of AI first conversational applications. Perhaps even headcount will be less, and perhaps the per seat model may be at risk. Talk me through Dennis's view of the world when it comes to AI as a potential threat to enterprise software.
I don't think it's a threat. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. It's quite the opposite. It can be a threat if you don't embrace it. It can be a threat if you don't manage it responsibly. It should be, though, an exponential opportunity for every single person in the world. So let's start with, why is it not an immediate threat if you think about it the right way? First and foremost, these AI companies that are coming and rising fast as LLMs or even small language models, they have fantastic capabilities that are best paired with enterprise software. Because at the end of the day, you do need a system of record. At the end of the day, you do need reporting, you do need compliance, you do need controls. And so while the LLMs are fantastic at studying data, interpreting that data, and helping you make better decisions faster, quicker, et cetera, you still need that control. And, they're not ready to take that on just yet. So I say best paired with. So if you can, and let's use Ivanti as an example, with our endpoint management business, we manage tens of millions of endpoints around the world. So therefore, we're able to monitor all the things that are happening. And if we train an LLM to recognize the patterns of all kinds of events, when somebody provisioned it, when somebody deprovisioned it, when it broke, who accessed it, multiple users accessing the same device, all of those different things are giving you information. And if you feed that into an LLM, as part of Avanti's original story, we have our Neurons platform, which has discovery, so find the device, but it also has the workspace, the application control, and most importantly, self-healing. Well, self-healing is informed by AI. Tell me how to fix this device, this endpoint, before it has a problem. And that problem could be anything. It could be hardware related, software related, access related, anything could be one of those things that affects it. So, AI helps our product be better, and it allows IT organizations to automate that, allows security organizations to automate all that so they can focus on higher value activities. Right? And so now I could say, hey, wait, AI is a security risk. I'm not going to let it have all that data. Or I could responsibly use that data to train the AI models to help my customers make better decisions. I'm going to vote for the latter.
I, of course, believe your argument. Uh, I am an AI optimist. Um, a lot of the challenge that software companies face, and by the way, every software company now, as you indicated, is an AI company.
Of course.
But a lot of the challenge we face is building trust with users.
Mm-hmm.
They're entrusting us with data and making automated decisions that we haven't really been entrusted with before. What does responsible AI mean to you, and how do you communicate to your customers that they should trust you with their data?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, we take it very seriously. Interestingly enough, in 2023, we formed internally our AI Governance Council. And why did we do that? Right? Because we knew that as generative AI was, coming onto the scene and being widely adopted, right? And it was being widely adopted, like anything else, first by consumers before enterprises. And the consumerization of IT has been a trend that's been happening for the last 15 years, where it used to be you got a company issued laptop or phone, people wanted to bring their own device. Well, that certainly created a huge opportunity for Ivanti to manage any device anywhere and provide a consistent user experience and still protect the enterprise. Well, when it comes to AI, it's a very similar posture. So, as our teams internally wanted to use AI tools, we wanted to vet the tool to make sure that the tool complied with the security standards that we had as a company. And so, right now, today, we have 42 different AI tools approved and in use by our teams. Some of them are in sales and marketing, some are in finance, some are in operations, some are in product management. We use AI to help build our products, to test our products, automate the release process. So we first have vetted every single tool that we use, and when we put it into our enterprise to be used to run our business, we know that it's met all of our security standards. And we take security very seriously. Certainly in our products, we made a commitment in 2024 towards a concept in partnership with CISA called Secure by Design. Making sure that security was first and foremost, the top priority in building and releasing products. So that side of it. The second is when we use AI and with our customer data, we know that because it's been vetted, we know that they comply with all of our policies, which our policies are very much part of our contractual obligations with our customers to keep them safe, right? So, we've got a really good process to make sure that, we've got the belt and suspenders on anything that we're doing to keep us from letting a bad actor in and doing something with this data, our data or the customer's data, that's going to cause a problem. Second is we build AI into our products for our customers to use. And as customers want to use their own AI or somebody else's AI with our products, we've got to make sure that we have the right guardrails and controls on those products. And so, how if you want to use ChatGPT, with our service desk, if you want to use, OpenAI or Grok or anything with one of our products, what APIs do we make available, and what can the AI do with the API? So, that's another aspect of it to make sure that we're always thinking about what can happen next. Now, the hard part is to stay ahead of the bad actors. Those bad actors out there are looking for ways to exploit. And look, it's a continuously evolving landscape. We have a whole cybersecurity team that their whole job is they're researching all of the threats, all of the patterns in the industry to try and make sure that we're staying ahead of what is the next vector or next front that we have to be concerned with, and trying to make sure our products, our people, our processes are aware and taking action to make sure that we prevent it. So it is going to be a fast evolving and continuously evolving effort.
Pre-AI, it was very clear if your customer, the human, let's say in a help desk or a security setting, a SOC or a NOC maybe, they made a bad decision that maybe had some financial impact. The liability was on them. They own the process. They're using your tool, but clearly it wasn't your tool. Now all of a sudden we're introducing, as an industry, we're introducing capabilities where the decisioning is owned by the software. Who's liable if the automation makes a decision that otherwise would have been blamed on a human, but it's the software making the decision. Unpack that one for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, that is an incredibly complicated topic because figuring out where the boundaries are of the inputs, the outputs, and the decision making will probably vary by a lot of use cases. So you start with the original software provider. I talked before about what guardrails do we put on the product to make sure that, let's say, the AI doesn't spin up some kind of let's just call it something even not bad, but just a death spiral of calls to a database that crashes the database. What guardrails do you put on that say, hey, listen, there's a circuit breaker, just like you have in your home power. If there's a surge in the voltage, the circuit breaker kicks in and shuts it down, and then it forces the human to come in and do a reset or a check. So we've got to have that built into our products. There's an old analogy, that goes back a long time. Let's say you're a tire manufacturer and you build tires and it goes on an aircraft and an aircraft crashes. It was in the air and it falls out of the sky and lands on the ground. Is the tire manufacturer responsible for that? Right. So, you've got to have the right protections as a supplier to know that you're responsible for the things that you can directly cause, not just because you were along for the ride. So, in that particular case, if we provide a piece of software that does a particular activity for a customer and they use their own AI, those guardrails have to protect us as the enterprise. The customer has to accept the responsibility that they may have caused that. And so, again, does the AI provider in that particular case have the circuit breaker responsibility? Does the customer have to implement their own circuit breakers to say, well, I'm going to set my threshold? It's kind of like investing in stocks. My financial advisor could say, hey, listen, based on this answers to these questions I gave you, you're a mid-risk type of investor. Like, you'll accept some risk, but not too much risk. So you're going to have some bonds and you're going to have some stocks, or you're not going to take any derivative or alternative investments. But I still own the decision if I take some money out of the account and then put it into something widely speculative. My financial advisor is not responsible, right, for the performance of that. So, I think the same thing will apply with AI, is that, there's going to be some guardrails that say, listen, I made some recommendations and you followed them or you didn't follow them. And, based on if you follow them to a T, I might have more liability. If you followed them loosely or ignored them, I may have less or no liability. So I think we have to kind of apply the same mindsets to AI use as well.
Good analogy. The advisor makes a recommendation, but ultimately you, the client, you are responsible for the whatever, the stock bond allocation,
right?
And any downstream impact.
I take Peloton classes, and there's one particular instructor that says, I make recommendations, but you make decisions. And so he'll tell you how hard to work. It's up to you whether you want to work that hard or not.
You get to decide your pain threshold.
That's right. Probably the same thing for AI, right?
So you're selling into IT and security professionals who are rightfully feeling a little destabilized these days. And, along comes Ivanti and just shows the dramatic, let's say, productivity improvements. But you might imagine that the people who you're selling to hear a different version of the conversation. They're hearing, am I training my replacement? Let's look ahead 10 years. Is this a good investment in my career if I endorse this technology? And it's complicated, like you said, because may or may not be their choice. And you don't really want to be the one who's not embracing innovation. And yet you don't even really know what the implications are, where your field is headed. How do you train your teams? And just at a personal level, how do you think about that? That wrestling that's going on right now for employees? Yeah,
well, I think there are some people who have clear intentions about using AI to reduce cost. I think about it very differently for Avanti. As most companies in America or around the world are capitalist oriented companies, we're here to make a profit. But the profit, that we want to make is not just make more profit with the same revenue. The goal is to continue to grow our market share, right? To grow the value of the investment. And, essentially every employee of Avanti has some sort of an equity relationship with the company. So that if they can cause the company to grow in value, they will share in that over time. So, My goal is to figure out how do we use AI to do more and focus on more important things. So, as a very simple example, using AI in our customer service function, our support function. While I want to talk to the customer and help them understand their problem, but how can I have more customers and not need more people to do that? So if I can help the customer solve their problem before they even have the problem, and in the sense of a ticket deflection, don't open the case. Or let's say they do open the case, we do talk to the customer, we do help them out, we solve their problem. Well, we want to document, the results. If I could use AI to document that, that's a low value activity. And so it's not about, getting rid of a function. It's about allowing that person to go work on another high value activity while the AI takes the low value work off of there. So now they spend more time doing, let's call it customer facing work than they do administrative and reporting work. So that should drive, employee satisfaction, that if they embrace the AI, they can do more things. They can help more customers, which is certainly the goal, the thing they like most. I highly doubt that any of my customer service and support reps really want to say, well, I don't want to take any more cases today. I just want to write these up all day. That's not why they took the job. They took the job because they thrive on helping customers solve their problems. So, that same mentality should be used across the board. How do we allow us to do this? So if I use AI inside our operation, I should be able to drive more profit. But that profit, I want to invest so I can grow the business. I don't want to be the same $1 billion in revenue every single year for the next 10 years. I want to see us grow at 10, 20, 30%, because that's what provides value creation for our investors and for our employees. And frankly, our customers get the innovation that comes with that. Think about some of the things that we all do with our smartphones every single day. In a lot of ways, it's made our jobs significantly easier, whatever job it might be. The fact that you have a flashlight, a phone, and all these things in your pocket versus carrying 20 different things, that's innovation. And so the same thing should be thought about with AI used in our jobs. Let's go use it. Now, will it disrupt certain types of roles? Yes. Think about Uber coming on the scene a number of years ago. It made everybody a taxi driver if you wanted to be. You didn't have to go get a license, so created jobs. Well, AI is going to create jobs in the same way. We just don't know what they are yet. They're going to reveal themselves. Or maybe AI replaces truck drivers because you have autonomous vehicles. Well, what do truck drivers do? They probably become logistics managers because they know all the things about the route, the payloads, and how much you can carry, and they're going to make recommendations and manage these things. But more things will move, more goods will move, so you'll need more people to manage logistics. And I don't know if that'll be the end result of that one, but it's we always have to think about how innovation will drive a new opportunity for humans, because humans have an unlimited capacity to continue to transform, adapt, and innovate. We've been adapting for thousands and thousands of years, based on different things. And the world has only gotten bigger, not smaller. So I think the same thing is going to happen with AI. It's just the next frontier.
I like that spirit. Indirectly or directly, we are both investing in early career professionals. And like me, I'm sure you get asked a lot of time, what should I be studying? What should I be training to do that's future proof? Being AI optimists, we probably have answers that we give. What's your version? What do you say is the thing that you should be learning that will make you more relevant in the next decade?
I think on one hand, it doesn't matter. On the other hand, it does. Here's the case for why it doesn't matter. Hard work beats everything. So if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do hard work, you're going to do fine no matter what happens. You referenced my school that I went to. It's not a nationally known school. It's not one of the best ranked schools in the world, but I still made it to a CEO level job. And it's because I worked hard, not because I went to an Ivy. And I think you can study art history and still become a CEO, although it's probably not the wisest choice. You probably want to study something in your field, but it's really more how you apply it. I went to school to be an accountant. I was never an accountant, never got my CPA, but I used that to understand how businesses work, and I turned that into every other job that I've had. And I think that it comes down to learning for the sake of learning, because as you learn, you develop a muscle in your brain that can process new things. And so whether like going back to our example about how AI will affect jobs, If you're open to using AI and you've learned something, it could be psychology, it could be computer science, it could be accounting. But the fact that you've learned, and now you can use that learning capability in applying it to a job that now involves the use of AI, you're going to do just fine, right? You're going to evolve with the tech instead of resisting the tech and saying, "Well, I don't want to participate." So, the hard work will outweigh everything else if you have an open mind and you're adaptable.
Good advice. I got to get you off the hot seat. We're bad out of time, but you're not going anywhere without answering one last important question for me. That was good advice to the younger generation. Now I want to make it personal. So if Dennis were having a conversation with that kid with an accounting degree, maybe, joining CA or, you're earlier in your career, and the seasoned Dennis is saying, "Hey kid, here's what you should expect up ahead." Other than, kind of work hard, anything that you would tell that younger version of yourself that might, give you some sense of what to expect?
I tell the story. What I was told was two things when I joined, was, work hard and always ask for more to do. And the other was be the first to arrive and the last to leave. Now, you could take that very literally, or you can take it figuratively. But the point of both of those pieces of advice were, that, you were showing up and showing people that you were committed. And, people that are committed, that are saying, I drove my first boss nuts because every day I'd finish whatever I was given to do and I'd show up in his office door and say, "Okay, what else do you have for me, Ray?" And eventually he was getting, "Well, I'm making up things for this guy to do to keep him busy." But, what that did was that allowed me to try different things. That is what ultimately created the path to move in different directions. And I don't think this world, 25 years later is any different. I think that especially with all of the disruption that we'll get through innovation, that being able to adapt and do different things, where we start as a career is not where we're going to end as a career. So therefore, we might as well, embrace it as quickly as we can. And it comes back to working hard and being open-minded to doing something different. Even if you were hired to do a job of X, and at the end of the day, you end up doing Y and then Z, well, you have that much more experience. So you could take that and you learn from all that, and then you're ready for, Z prime after that.
Well said, Dennis. That is clearly the through line through certainly through your past. I expect big things from you and Ivanti, and I want you to come back and share with us the wins, and we should keep this conversation going. This is really, really fascinating.
I would love to. I think we're just getting started, and I'm excited to be updating you in the future.
That we are. Dennis, where can the listeners learn more about you and the great work that your team's doing?
Our listeners, you should go to Avanti.com for sure, and give us a follow on LinkedIn. We do a really good job talking about our research, our findings, and our path forward on social. But certainly on our website, you're going to find all of our assets. So go to Avanti.com and check it out.
Excellent. That is all the time we have for this week on AI and the Future of Work. Thanks to the great Dennis Kozak from Ivanti for joining me. Of course, I'm Dan Turchin from PeopleRain, and we're back next week with another fascinating guest.